The golden gates of the alien palace opened with a slow, heavy sound, echoing through the hall. Every alien noble inside turned their head to look. A human man, tall, broad-shouldered, and dressed in a black combat uniform, was walking between two guards. His name was Captain Ryan Cole. His boots clicked against the marble floor. But his eyes never moved from the massive throne at the far end of the room. On that throne sat Queen Serena, ruler of the Zareth Dominion, feared across the galaxy. She was unlike anything Ryan had ever seen. Her skin shimmered in deep sapphire blue, almost glowing under the palace lights. Her long crimson hair flowed like silk down her shoulders, and her golden crown sparkled with jewels from worlds had never heard of. Her dress was the color of burning sunset, hugging her elegant form and flowing down the steps of her throne. Ryan had seen battlefields, explosions, and alien monsters, but nothing had prepared him for her. He stopped at the base of the throne steps. The hall fell silent. Dozens of alien guards stood ready, their spears glowing with energy. The nobles whispered to one another, their strange, melodic language filling the air like soft music. The queen's voice broke the silence. It was calm, smooth, but carried power. "Human," she said, "you saved my life today. You stopped the enemy's flagship before it destroyed my palace. By the ancient laws of my people, I owe you a gift. One wish, anything you ask, shall be yours." The nobles leaned forward, eyes shining with curiosity. This was the moment everyone was waiting for. Ryan kept his expression calm. Inside, his heart was pounding. The weight of the moment pressed down on him. This was a chance to ask for power, wealth, or freedom. Any human in his position would demand something to change his life forever. One alien noble, tall and thin, with emerald green skin, whispered to another, "He will ask for ships, maybe even a planet." Another said, "Or gold. Humans love gold." The queen tilted her head slightly, studying him like she was trying to read his thoughts. "Speak, Captain. Tell me what you desire." Ryan took a slow breath. He looked into her golden eyes and said, "I choose you." The words fell into the air like a stone into water. Ripples of shock spread through the hall. The nobles gasped, some standing in disbelief. The guards stiffened. Even the queen's fingers tightened on the arm of her throne. "What did you say?" she asked, her voice sharper now. Ryan's gaze didn't waver. "My wish is you. Not your gold. Not your ships, you." The queen's lips parted slightly, but no words came out at first. In all her years of ruling, she had heard demands for kingdoms, treasures, armies, but never this. Never something so direct, so bold. The hall erupted in whispers. "This is an insult," shouted one noble. "It is forbidden," said another. "He seeks to chain the queen to a human." Serena raised a hand, and the room fell quiet again. Her golden eyes locked onto Ryan's. She was trying to understand him, to see if he was mocking her, or if he truly meant it. "You know the weight of what you ask," she said slowly. "Choosing me is not like choosing a jewel or a starship. My life belongs to my people. My heart is not a prize." "I know," Ryan said simply, "but my wish remains the same." For a long moment, the queen did not move. Her face remained unreadable, but inside her mind was a storm. Why would a human risk offending her court for something so foolish? Was it arrogance, desire, or something deeper? Finally, she leaned back in her throne. "I cannot refuse a wish once it is made," she said. "But I'm not bound to grant it immediately." Her voice grew colder. "You will stay in my palace until I decide what to do with you." Ryan didn't flinch. "I'll wait." Gasps rose again from the court. This man, this human, was either fearless or mad. Guard Serenia ordered, "Take him to the guest wing. He is to be treated with formality." The guards bowed and led Ryan away, but even as he turned to leave, his eyes met hers one last time. And in that moment, something unexpected stirred in the Queen's chest, something she quickly pushed away as the heavy doors closed behind him. The nobles began arguing in hushed voices. Some called for the human to be banished, others for him to be punished. A few, however, wondered what kind of man would dare to choose the alien queen herself. High above on her throne, Serenia sat in silence. She told herself his choice meant nothing, that he was just another arrogant outsider. But deep down, she knew the truth. His words had gotten under her skin, and for the first time in many years, the Queen of Zareth felt truly unsettled. The guest chamber given to Ryan was beautiful, too beautiful for a soldier like him. The walls were made of pale crystal, glowing softly from within. A balcony opened to a view of the alien city, its spires shimmering under twin moons. Yet Ryan didn't admire it for long. He knew he was being watched. Two guards in silver armor stood outside his door. Their tall, slender forms never moved, but he could feel their eyes on him through the wall. Somewhere in the palace, the Queen was probably deciding if his bold request was a mistake or an insult. In the throne room, Queen Serenia sat alone, the court dismissed. She replayed his words in her mind, "Tide choose. You." Her fingers tapped against the armrest of her throne. What was his game? Men had desired her before, but they wanted her crown, her influence, her armies. This human had asked for her as if she were a person, not a prize. It was dangerous. It was unsettling. A soft chime at the door pulled her from her thoughts. Her advisor, Lord Valrin, entered, his tall figure wrapped in emerald robes. "My queen," he began, "this request cannot be allowed. He is human, an outsider. If you honor his wish, it will make you appear weak before the council." Serenia's golden eyes narrowed. "Law of our ancestors is clear, Valrin. One wish, no refusal." "Then delay him," Valrin suggested. "Test him. Make the human see he is unworthy, and he will leave on his own." Serenia considered this. A small, cold smile touched her lips. "Very well. Let us see if this human can survive what I have in mind." The next morning, Ryan was escorted to the palace courtyard. The Queen stood there, wearing ceremonial battle armor, gleaming mix of gold and crimson. Her crown replaced by a slim battle circlet. She looked like both a goddess and a warrior. "Captain Cole," she said, her voice echoing through the open space. "If you wish to claim me, you must first prove you can stand in my world. Complete my trials, and I will consider your request. Fail, and you will be escorted back to your people." Ryan didn't hesitate. "I accept." The first trial began at once. Trial 1, the Feast of Fangs. Ryan was brought to a grand dining hall filled with alien generals. The long table was covered in dishes, some steaming, some still moving. The generals watched him with thinly veiled contempt. One slid a plate toward him, revealing a creature that still twitched. "It is tradition to honor the host by eating their finest dish," the general sneered. "Do you honor our queen?" Orion stared at the thing, then calmly picked it up, bit into it, and swallowed. His face stayed perfectly calm. "Delicious," he said, even though the taste was somewhere between burned metal and sour poison. The generals exchanged surprised glances. Trial. To the crystal gardens that afternoon, Ryan was led to a glittering maze of crystal plants. Their beauty was breathtaking, shards of pink, blue, and green that caught the sunlight like jewels. But the beauty hid danger. Some plants dripped acid. Others had razor-edged petals. The path to the exit twisted and changed, forcing him to think quickly. Halfway through, a small alien bird became trapped between two crystal branches, its wing bleeding. Ryan paused, risking time, and gently freed it. The bird chirped weakly before flying away. From a balcony above, Serenia watched. That small act caught her attention more than his earlier boldness. Most would have ignored the creature to win. Trial. 3. The wind of the spires at sunset. He was taken to the highest point of the palace, where icy winds howled like living beasts. His task was to place the queen's banner at the top of a thin spire. The climb was brutal slick metal. Biting cold, but Ryan made it without falling. When he returned, frost coated his hair, but he still smiled. Serenia said nothing, but her eyes followed him longer than they should have. Later that night, Ryan sat on his balcony, staring at the moons. He knew she was testing him. He also knew she wasn't doing it to humiliate him, at least not entirely. There was curiosity in her gaze now. He had seen it. Meanwhile, in her private chambers, Serenia stood before a mirror, removing her battle circlet. She caught herself thinking of his steady eyes and the way he never once looked afraid. She shook her head sharply. He was a challenge, nothing more. But deep down, she wasn't sure if she believed that anymore. The choice he made today had shaken the palace, and perhaps shaken her as well. The palace felt different now. Guards no longer looked at Ryan like he was a stranger. They looked at him like a problem that refused to go away. Word had spread quickly. The human had passed all 3 trials. In the great hall, Queen Serenia sat at the long council table. Her advisors gathered around her. Lord Velrun's voice was sharp. "My queen, this cannot continue. The human is stubborn. If he survives all your tests, tradition will bind you to him." Serenia's golden eyes narrowed. "Then I will make the next test impossible." She stood, her long gown trailing behind her as she left the hall. There was something restless in her steps. It was not just about proving him unworthy. It was about finding out what truly drove him. That afternoon, Ryan was summoned to the Hall of Echoes, a vast chamber lined with polished obsidian walls. His footsteps echoed as he entered. At the far end, Serenia stood alone, wearing a gown of deep midnight blue, her crown casting soft reflections on the walls. "Captain Cole," she said, "you will face the trial of shadows. This test is not of strength or skill, but of heart. In this trial, you will be shown illusions, visions of what you desire most. If you give in to temptation, you fail." Ryan tilted his head slightly. "And if I don't, then," she said softly, "you will walk out unchanged, or perhaps changed forever." The air shimmered. The walls around him dissolved into mist. Suddenly, Ryan was standing in a small cabin on Earth. Sunlight streamed through the windows, and outside, green fields stretched endlessly. In the corner sat his younger sister, smiling, alive, something he hadn't seen since the war. His chest tightened. He wanted to run to her, hold her, stay in this moment forever. The voice in his head whispered, "You can live here. Forget the alien queen. Forget everything." But he closed his eyes, forcing the image away. "You're not real," he said quietly. The vision faded. He was back in the Hall of Echoes. Serenia was watching him closely, her expression unreadable. The illusions continued. A table stacked high with treasures, gold, gems, weapons of alien design appeared before him. He ignored them. A fleet of warships shimmered into being, each bearing his name. He walked past them without a glance. Finally, one last vision appeared: Serenia. Herself, not as a queen, but as a woman in simple clothes, smiling warmly. She reached for his hand. "This could be yours," the illusion whispered. "No court, no politics. Just us." Ryan's heart pounded, but he shook his head. "If you want to give me your hand, it should be real, not a trick." The vision broke apart like glass. When the trial ended, Serenia stood very still. She had designed the illusions herself, meant to see where his heart truly lay. She expected greed, ambition, or lust to pull him away. Instead, she found something else, a patience she had never seen in a suitor before. "You passed," she said, though her voice was softer now. Ryan gave a faint smile. "Was there ever a chance you wanted me to fail?" Her lips curved in two, something between a smirk and a frown. "I wanted to know if you were worthy of my attention." As she turned to leave, she caught her reflection in the obsidian wall, her cheeks warmer than they should have been. She did not like how this human was affecting her. That night, the palace buzzed with whispers. Servants spoke in low voices about how the queen's tests had failed to break the human. Some were impressed. Others called it dangerous. In the shadows of the council chamber, Lord Velryn met with two cloaked figures. "He is gaining her trust," Velryn said. "If the queen grows fond of him, she will forget her duty to the Dominion. That cannot happen." The cloaked figures nodded. "Shall we remove him?" Velryn's eyes gleamed. "Soon, but not yet. Let him get closer, so the fall will be harder." In her private chambers, Serenia sat by the balcony, looking out at the twin moons. Her mind should have been on politics, on threats to her rule. Instead, she found herself thinking about the way Ryan had walked past every temptation, even the image of herself. Why would a human, who could ask for anything, waste his wish on her? The answer was becoming more important to her than she cared to admit. The Zareth Palace was a place of golden beauty on the outside. But inside, it was a maze of whispers and sharp smiles. Every step Ryan took through the marble halls carried the weight of dozens of eyes watching him. Some watched with curiosity, some with contempt, and a few with quiet calculation. It had been 3 days since the trial of shadows. The queen had spoken little to him since, but when she did, her voice was no longer cold. Her gaze lingered a little longer, and her questions seemed less like an interrogation and more like curiosity to the court. This was dangerous. That morning, Ryan walked past a long balcony where 2 alien nobles stood speaking in hushed tones. They didn't notice he was close enough to hear. "The queen is becoming distracted," one said, his skin shimmering like wet silver. "Distracted by a human," the other scoffed. "If she keeps him near, it will weaken her. The High Council will not allow it. Lord Velryn already has plans." Ryan kept walking, not letting them see he had overheard. But inside, his instincts sharpened. He'd been a soldier too long to ignore the smell of trouble. Later, in the royal garden, Ryan was summoned by Queen Serenia. She was seated under the shade of a wide silver-leaf tree, the petals above drifting down like falling stars. She looked almost relaxed, wearing a gown of deep green instead of her usual royal armor. "Sit," she said softly. He obeyed. "I have heard the court is uneasy about your presence," she began. Ryan gave a faint smile. "Uneasy? I'd say they want me gone." Her golden eyes studied him. "You don't seem afraid." "I've been in war zones, Your Majesty," he said simply. "People plotting behind my back isn't new." Something in his calmness made her feel strangely reassured. But before she could speak again, a servant approached, bowing low. "My queen, the council requests your presence immediately." Her jaw tightened. "Velryn," she muttered under her breath. She stood and left, leaving Ryan alone in the garden. That night, the palace changed. The halls grew quieter. Even the guards' movements were slower, heavier. Ryan sat in his chamber, his instincts screaming that something was wrong. It wasn't long before he found out why. A faint scraping sound came from his balcony. He moved silently to the wall, waiting. A shadow climbed over the railing, a cloaked figure holding a blade that glowed faint blue. Ryan acted fast, grabbing a metal vase and hurling it across the room. It struck the intruder's wrist, making the blade drop. The figure lunged at him, but Ryan tackled him to the ground. The fight was short but brutal. Ryan pinned the attacker, pulling back the hood. It wasn't just any assassinate, was one of the Queen's own guards. In another part of the palace, Saranya sat in the council chamber. Velryn was speaking about security risks, about how outsiders should not be given power. She listened, her patience thinning. Then a soldier burst through the door. "My queen. There's been an attack on the human." Saranya was on her feet. Instantly, her voice sharp. Where? By the time she reached Ryan's chamber, he was standing beside the tied and unconscious assassin, his breath steady despite the fight. Her eyes scanned him quickly, as if making sure he was unharmed. "You're not hurt?" she asked. "Not badly," he said, rubbing his shoulder. Her gaze hardened as she looked at the guard on the floor. "He will be dealt with." "Someone sent him," Ryan said quietly. "Tay. And I think you already know who." She didn't answer, but the truth was clear in her eyes. That night, Saranya couldn't sleep. She stood on her balcony, the cool night wind brushing her hair. She thought about the way she'd felt when she heard of the attack, how her chest had tightened. How she had walked faster than she ever had to reach his chamber. It wasn't just about duty anymore. The human had risked everything to choose her, and now someone in her own court was ready to spill his blood for it. And, for the first time, Queen Saranya wondered if she was willing to spill blood to protect him in return. The palace had settled into an uneasy calm after the assassination attempt, but Ryan knew the danger hadn't passed. Guards were doubled in the halls, and the queen rarely walked anywhere without her personal guard beside her. Yet, in the middle of all this tension, Saranya sent for him not to the council chambers or a trial ground, but to the royal garden. It was late afternoon when he arrived. The garden glowed with the soft golden light of the twin suns setting in the horizon. Strange. Flowers with crystal petals opened as the light touched them, releasing scents that were both sweet and sharp. Saranya stood by a small pond, her reflection rippling in the water. "Captain Cole," she said, without turning. "Ryan," he corrected gently. She looked over her shoulder at him, and for a brief second, there was no crown in her posture, no armor in her voice, only a woman studying a man she didn't fully understand. "You've faced my trials. You've ignored treasures, armies, and even illusions of home. You survived an assassin in my own palace. And yet, I still don't know why." "Why what?" he asked. "Why you chose me," she said, her voice quiet but sharp. "You could have asked for anything. Riches, freedom for your people, power beyond measure. But you asked for me." "Why?" Ryan stepped closer, his boots crunching softly on the white stone path. He looked at the pond, not her, as if searching for the right words. "Years ago," he began, "I was stationed on a human colony. We were losing. Every week, we heard news of another settlement falling. People stopped believing we'd survive the war. Even soldiers like me, we stopped hoping." He paused, his hands resting loosely at his sides. "Then one night, I saw a transmission. It was from a distant battle, a place I had never been. In the middle of the chaos, with ships burning and enemy forces closing in. There you were, standing in the middle of the battlefield, crown on your head, sword in your hand, not running, not hiding." Saranya's eyes softened just slightly. "You didn't know it, but that image, it woke something in me, told me that there was still someone out there who wouldn't bow to fear. It gave me a reason to fight again. And when I finally stood in front of you, and you offered me a wish, there was nothing else worth asking for." The queen was silent for a long moment. Her golden eyes searched his face, looking for any sign of a lie. There was none. "You would risk your life, your future, just because I inspired you once." Ryan smiled faintly. "You weren't just a symbol that day. You were proof that courage still existed in the galaxy. And if I had one wish, I wanted it to be for something that mattered. Not gold, not ships, but the person who reminded me how to stand again. Serenia's breath caught in her throat before she could hide it. She turned away, pretending to study the flowers, but her mind was racing. She had been worshipped before, flattered by kings, courted by warriors, but never like this. Never by someone who wanted her without her crown. Suddenly, a voice echoed from behind the hedges. "My queen, it is dangerous to be alone with him." Lord Valrin stepped into view, his emerald robe flowing around him. His eyes flicked to Ryan, with open disdain. "There are still those who believe this human's presence here is a mistake. I urge you to reconsider before it is too late." Ryan didn't move, but his gaze stayed locked on Valrin. "If you're going to threaten me, at least be honest about it." Valrin's smile was thin. "Threats are for enemies, Captain. I am only advising the Queen." Serenia's voice turned icy. "Your advice is noted, Valrin. Leave us." Valrin bowed stiffly and left, but not before giving Ryan a look that promised more trouble ahead. When they were alone again, Serenia faced Ryan. There was something different in her expression, now less guarded, more human. "Your words today," she said slowly, "they may change more than you realize." Ryan gave a small shrug. "They're just the truth." She shook her head faintly. "The truth is dangerous here." But despite her warning, her eyes lingered on him a moment longer before she turned to leave. And for the first time, Ryan thought he saw something in her that wasn't just curiosity, was the beginning of trust. That night, as Ryan sat in his chamber, he thought about her reaction. He hadn't planned to tell her everything, but it had been the right moment. Now, whether she admitted it or not, she knew the real reason he was here. And somewhere deep inside the palace, Serenia sat alone in her chambers, replaying his words. "You reminded me how to stand again, for a queen who had been standing alone for far too long." Those words had left a mark she couldn't ignore. The morning began with the sound of war drums. Deep and heavy, they rolled through the palace walls, like distant thunder. Ryan woke instantly, every soldier's instinct telling him that trouble was near. He stepped onto his balcony and saw the sky above the city turning a dull red. Alien war banners fluttered over the horizon, black and jagged, belonging to the Varkas clans. The same enemy who had tried to kill Serenia weeks ago. Inside the throne room, Queen Serenia stood in full battle armor, her golden crown replaced by a sleek war circlet. Her generals gathered around a glowing tactical map. Red lights marked dozens of enemy ships breaking through the outer defenses. "They've bypassed our fleet," one general said grimly. "They will be at the palace gates within hours." Serenia's voice was sharp. Mobilize every guard. Seal the lower halls. Evacuate the civilians to the western stronghold." Ryan entered then, striding past the guards. "What can I do?" "You will stay here," Serenia said, without looking at him. "It is not your fight." Ryan shook his head. "If they break through, it will be everyone's fight." Her golden eyes flicked toward him. For a second, she looked like she might argue then. She gave a short nod. "Stay near me then. If they want my head, you can make them work for it." By midday, the battle had reached the palace gates. The sound of blaster fire and clashing metal filled the air. From the balcony, Ryan could see the enemy swarming forward, black armor gleaming under the red sky. The palace shook as the main doors gave way. Guards rushed to meet the attackers, but the Varkas fighters were fast and ruthless. In the chaos, one of the enemies slipped through the defenses, heading straight for the queen. Ryan moved before anyone else could react. He intercepted the attacker, tackling him to the ground. The alien swung a curved blade, grazing Ryan's side. Pain shot through him, But he kept fighting, finally disarming the enemy and knocking him unconscious. "Ryan," Serenia's voice cut through the noise. She was beside him in an instant, her hand on his shoulder. "You're bleeding." "It's nothing," he said, wincing. "Focus on the fight." But her gaze lingered on the wound longer than necessary before she turned back to the battle. The fighting grew worse. The enemy began setting fire to parts of the palace. Smoke curled through the halls, stinging eyes and throats. Ryan stayed, close to Serenia, cutting down anyone who got too close. Then came the moment that would change everything. A Varkas warlord, towering and armored in black spikes, smashed through the hall doors. He roared and charged straight at Serenia. She moved to block him, but his blade was faster aimed right for her heart. Ryan didn't think. He threw himself in front of her. The blade slammed into his side, knocking him to the floor. Pain exploded through his body and the world blurred. The warlord raised his weapon to finish him. But Serenia's cry tore through the hall. She struck like lightning, her blade slicing through the enemy's armor. The warlord fell with a heavy crash. She dropped to her knees beside Ryan. "Stay with me," she said, her voice breaking for the first time. Her hands, so steady in battle, trembled as they pressed against his wound. Guards rushed in, forcing back the remaining attackers. A medic knelt beside them, working quickly. Ryan's vision faded in and out. "Guess I'm still your bodyguard," he managed to say with a faint smile. "Fool," she whispered, her golden eyes glistening. "You could have died." "Worth it," he murmured, before darkness pulled him under. Hours later, Ryan woke in the palace infirmary. The scent of clean herbs filled the air, and soft light streamed through the window. Serenia was sitting beside his bed, her armor gone, her hair loose around her shoulders. When his eyes opened, relief washed over her face. "You should be resting," he said weakly. "I stayed," she replied simply. "I had to make sure you would wake." Ryan studied her expression. It wasn't the mask of a queen, it was the face of someone who had almost lost something they didn't realize they needed until it was nearly gone. She leaned closer, her voice soft but firm. "I made my decision, Ryan, not because of duty. Not because of law, because I will not watch you walk away from me." Her hand found his, warm and steady. "When you asked for me, I didn't understand. But now, I want you to stain as my prize, but as my choice." Ryan's answer was a tired but genuine smile. "Then I'll stay." The great hall of the Zareth Palace had never been this full. Golden banners hung from the high ceilings, and alien nobles in shimmering robes crowded the long marble floor. The air was thick with murmurs. Everyone had heard the rumors, but the human who had survived the Queen's trials and assassination attempt, and even the latest battle. At the far end of the hall, the golden throne waited. Queen Serenia sat upon it, her crown catching the light, her golden eyes unreadable. Beside her stood Lord Velryn, his expression smug. He believed today was the day the Queen would send the human away for good. The heavy doors opened, and Ryan entered. His wounds were still healing, but he walked with steady steps, dressed in simple but formal black. He didn't bow. He simply met the Queen's gaze. A hush fell over the room. Serenia rose to her feet. Her voice carried across the hall, clear and strong. "Today, before the High Council and the people of Zareth, I will speak of the human who stands before me." Velryn stepped forward, his voice oily. "Your Majesty, before you speak, I must remind the court of the dangers of silence," Serenia said sharply, not taking her eyes off Ryan. Velryn froze. Stunned by the open command, she descended the throne steps, the long train of her crimson gown flowing behind her. When she reached Ryan, she stood so close that the whispers in the hall grew louder. "This man," she said, her voice softer now, but still carrying power, was offered a wish that could have given him anything. Riches, armies, worlds, but he chose me. Gasps rippled through the crowd. He did not choose me for my crown, she continued. He did not choose me for my armies. He chose me because, long before we met, I inspired him to stand when the galaxy wanted him to fall. And when danger came to my palace, he stood in front of me again, this time to take the blade meant for my heart. She turned to face the crowd. Some call that foolishness. I call it loyalty. And in this galaxy, loyalty is worth more than gold. Valrin stepped forward again, desperate. Your Majesty, the council will never approve of Serenia. Cut him off, her voice like steel. This is not the council's decision. This is mine. She turned back to Ryan, and for a long moment there was no queen and no soldier, just a people who had fought side by side. Then she reached for his hand and pulled him forward. So they stood together before the court. From this day forward, Serenia declared, Captain Ryan Cole will not be an outsider in this palace. He will stand at my side, not as my guard, not as my servant, but as my chosen consort. The hall exploded in murmurs. Some voices were outraged, others curious, and a few even approving. But Ryan didn't look at them. His eyes were only on her, for the first time since he had met her. Serenia smiled, not the polite smile of a ruler, not the sly smile of a strategist, but something real, something warm. It was the kind of smile that stripped away her royal mask and showed the woman beneath the crown. That's my wish, she whispered. Just for him. Ryan's lips curved into a small, amused smile. I thought I already used my wish. You did? She said softly. But this one, I'm granting myself. It was then that the court saw the priceless reaction of the Queen of Zareth. For years, she had been the unshakable ruler, untouchable and cold. But now, standing beside a human, her golden eyes held a light no one had seen before. Valrin stepped back, defeated. He knew the council could argue for weeks, but it wouldn't matter. Serenia had made her choice, and the queen's word was final. The nobles, seeing there was no turning the tide, began to bow one by one until the hall was filled with lowered heads. Ryan leaned slightly toward her. You just shook your entire court. Serenia's smile deepened. Good. Let them be shaken. That night, the palace was quiet. The fires of battle were gone, the whispers of the court had faded, and the twin moons cast silver light over the city. On the high balcony, Serenia and Ryan stood together, looking over the world she ruled. Still glad you chose me? She asked, softly. More than ever, he said. She reached for his hand, lacing her fingers with his. And in that simple gesture, without war drums or royal decrees, they sealed something far greater than any political alliance. In the end, the queen had granted his wish, but in doing so, she had discovered her own.